Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another Mish Mash. It's been a minute or, well, 5 months-ish or so. Uh, first, first thing I should do is welcome my wonderful guests who have taken time out of their day to spend with us, with me, with you. Let's start with Tanya. Tanya, welcome to Mish Mash. How are you?
Well, I don't want to be upstage with Steve. I remember that it was May the 4th.
May the 4th be with you. I may or may not have run upstairs like 30 seconds before we went live to get this Star Wars mug.
Janelle just put a comment on there. I wonder if Steve will have a Star Wars mug. I have two here. There's Chewie, and there's Obi-Wan, and these are fantastic. 1977. So I'm not drinking anything out of them.
This is lead lined mugs.
Yeah, probably.
You bring Obi-Wan up for just a second again. He looks a little possessed.
Yeah. Look at his blue eyes.
Yeah.
Are a little sketchy.
Intense.
Yeah, and I was showing Tanya, it's really hard to see, but on the bottom, they're ceramic, so they're etched. And it actually says kind of in this area right up here, it says 1977. So yeah, I've had these since I was a little youngster.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
I've had this for about 4 years, ever since I think he gave it to me maybe even in Vermont. So 7, 8, 9 years. It was a birthday present once, filled with candy. It's wonderful.
Oh, nice. I don't know what these.
Happy May 4th to everybody else out there. But let's come back to Tanya. We just said, Tanya, welcome back to the show. Thanks so much for being with us. How are you doing?
It's busy. May, it was like dead for a little while, and then April started to pick up, and May is like, I just have to survive May. So
a lot of senior shoots, family photography. What's keeping you busy?
Well, I also work at a school, and I'm shooting all of the end of the year events. So like I just did our really large spring program, track and field. So there's things like that. But I have picked up several dance studios that I am photographing all these little dancers. And so I'm doing that, and a lacrosse team, and I have children's portraits and families portraits. So it just went like all of a sudden like crazy. So it's good. It's a good problem.
That's a lot. It is. It sounds good. How do you keep that all organized? Are you a paper calendar person, digital calendar person, or some other way?
I keep a really updated Google Calendar, and Siri reminds me of things every hour, it feels like. So nice. I do a lot of notes, but usually on my phone because it's always with me. So it's a useful tool.
Cool. Very cool. You recently taught a creativity class with Allie McKay, and a little later in the show, we'll come back and we'll talk a little bit about that. It looked fantastic. I love the images I was seeing that came out of it. So I'm curious to hear a little bit more about that class.
Yeah, well, that was great. That was the first time I met the McKays in person.
That's kind of crazy.
And that was my first time in California, so that was fun. But it was amazing. We had a fantastic time. So I'll wait to talk about it, but it was a great class. We had some amazing artists in the class, and it was very inspirational.
Nice. That's great. Steve, welcome to the show. It hasn't been too long since I've seen you, because in person, we've been on quite a few trips. In fact, I think from the beginning or mid-January until, was it end of March, you and I spent more time with each other than we did with our significant others.
Yeah, we were definitely work wives.
Or
you were my work wife at that point. It's weird though, because you say I haven't seen you, or it hasn't been that long in between seeing each other. But because we had spent so much time together at the beginning of this year, it feels like I haven't seen you in a long time. I mean, that was we had Antarctica, and got to spend a whole week in a hotel in Argentina afterwards. And then we had, what was it? Yosemite? And then we had 2 Death Valley.
Yellowstone.
I mean, Yellowstone.
Yellowstone. Then Death Valley.
Death Valley tours. And then this little break. You've been traveling around. It's so crazy right now. The real estate market has gone absolutely nuts. Everybody knows that. But as a real estate photographer, when I'm home, a lot of times, I get 2-4 shoots a week, maybe. It's gone absolutely crazy. And especially right now, because I'm getting ready to leave for 2 weeks. So my regular realtors are just cramming in as many photo shoots as I can get before I leave town for a couple weeks, because the market's just absolutely insane right now. And they all need it, yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I saw some of your stuff that looked amazing.
What?
I saw some of your posts. They look amazing.
Yeah, there was, a couple of these places I'll share up every so often if it's a cool home or something like that. But thank you. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I know I was rusty about something. I forgot to put up Instagram links. They're also right down below the show. If you're watching and you don't already follow Tanya, that Tanya Wilhelm.artist is a wonderful place to do that. And from there, you can see your other Instagrams. Are you sharing any of the kind of the sports that you're shooting at the school too, or is that mostly just for the school?
I usually just do that for the school. Sometimes I put them in my stories because I'm like super proud of my school, and we've been kind of killing it.
The state champs. Your daughter.
Yeah, the girls. And your daughter is also part of that team, wasn't she?
We were the PIAA state champions, and our high school is like 70 students, so it's a big deal, and it was history for us. So
that was awesome.
Cool.
Yeah,
very cool.
It's incredible.
And then Steve, as who we were just talking to, you can follow him, of course, at Scurich on Instagram, and that's linked right down below. Steve, in addition to being pretty busy, even though you haven't been touring with me, and I know you miss me, you've been preparing for PPA districts?
Yeah, so districts are coming up. I think the judging is May 19th. I know it's when we're going to be on the second Southwest tour.
It's the 16th.
When is it 17th?
16th.
Oh, okay. What do I know? And it's like 3 days, 2 or 3 days of judging.
Yeah. It probably goes into I'm sure it goes to almost the 19th, if not all the way.
Maybe that's what I was thinking. I didn't get in on early entrance. It seems like I never do. It's always a good idea to do that because it saves you a lot of money. I think I had to pay a $30 penalty for getting my stuff in a little late, but got that buttoned up and sent off. And that's always a huge load off, especially at nationals, but even for the district, it's nice to just get your 4 photos submitted and see how they do. And if they do well, it actually takes a ton of pressure off of nationals in the fall. But we'll see how it goes.
Yeah,
I feel a lot of pressure in this one because I only need 4.
Oh, you're feeling the pressure. I do have to say the pressure is really so much less this year. Technically, I had earned my degree last year, but we had Antarctica right after the ceremony would have happened, and we had the Omicron variant of COVID hit, and it was just too risky to go to this, big event and then get on a ship and go to Antarctica. So I pulled out of that and said, can I cash in my merits next year and actually walk the stage and not have to worry so much about putting, our clients at risk or our staff and that kind of stuff. So, I've already earned my degree. So next year I get to walk through and enjoy all the benefits. But when you're that close, 4 points.
I know.
This is it, Tanya. You'll probably do it. I'm sure you'll do it.
I mean, my past 2, I earned at least that many. I earned 5 my first year and 4 my second. So
yeah, you and Paul Anderson. I mean, a lot of the Penn members have been killing it, but you guys are earning that degree in just record time. It's really impressive to see.
We'll see.
And for anybody watching who doesn't know, we're talking about the Professional Photographers of America, their district competition, and then later in the year they have the international competition. And depending on how you do, you earn points towards getting a degree as a master photographer. Is that the way to say it? Degree? Mm-hmm. Certification?
Yeah. Certification.
Yeah.
I think it's a big deal. Also referred to as a degree. I'm not sure.
It's a big deal. So it's great. Steve, I just wanted your recent Dediphos photo, your black and white. I absolutely love it. It's stunning. People should go take a look at that. We're going to talk a little bit about Instagram and how I feel like what has been happening to me for several years is now happening on a much wider scale on Instagram. That is lack of growth, and then lack of reach, even when people have lots and lots of followers. And I'm seeing it from people posting gorgeous, beautiful images that just are not getting much, or just not getting seen. And I want to talk a little bit about that and why I still think it's worthwhile for you to post somewhat regularly to Instagram, even despite all of that. And I'll talk a little bit about the glass update. Twitter too, we want to talk about. We're going to go there for a moment, for a hot moment. And then I think the big one that a lot of people are interested in is the Canon R7 rumors. This is going to be an APS-C mirrorless camera. Canon's a little messy right now. They already have mirrorless APS-C cameras. It uses a completely different mount than their new mirrorless cameras. It's not kind of an EFS version of their current RF cameras. So the question is, what kind of mount will this new camera have? Is it going to have a crop sensor mount? Is it going to have full frame sensor mount? What are the pros and cons of that? We'll talk about that. Plus, we've got your images to review. And what else did I want to chat about on this trip? I don't know what I'm talking about. Oh, I know. One other thing about Instagram, I posted a picture the other day, and it annoys me so much, the square crop that Instagram does to the thumbnail, to the feed view. Or is that the thumbnail view? The gallery view. And I just want to give a quick shout out to Squarespace. Of course, that's where I run my own website, and you can save 10%, squarespace.com/photorectv, all one word, no little period in there between the photorec and the .tv. When you post images, and if you want them to be cropped square in the kind of gallery or view, you can drag and drop a little circle to kind of change where that square crop happens. It's not actually cropping the image, but it's kind of targeting the section of the image you want. It's such an easy, quick fix. Instagram, it would be nice if you did something similar.
There's like a dozen things that Instagram could do that just blow us away. Every time we're hanging out together on tour and we're making a post or something, we start griping about one little thing or another on Instagram that seems like it should have been fixed 5 years ago. Like, yeah, just being able to kind of move your picture around within this square space. I find myself making posts now where I literally go into Photoshop and crop it for Instagram on one section of the photo, and then do the whole photo with the white bars at the top and the bottom. It's just kind of silly that you have to do it that way.
Yep. Yeah, it is. I mean, this is not some little company. This is, Instagram, $billion, part of a multi-billion-dollar company. Clearly has plenty of resources. Also, maybe we'll just talk a little bit more about Instagram right now, since we already are. The emphasis now on Reels. It's just, sure, this company, they're in charge of their social media platform, and they've decided that to compete with TikTok, that they want more emphasis on video and Reels. The other day I was scrolling, and I thought that I accidentally got into the Reels section, because every post for 10 to 15 posts in a row was a video. But nope, I was just in my regular feed. But it's just because of their emphasis on showing that, and everybody trying to kind of ride that train, or to do what Instagram wants, so that they're not losing all of their engagement. That's all it was. And it wasn't the kind of content that I signed up for on Instagram. So it was frustrating.
I do better when I post Reels.
Yeah.
Like, way better. Like, that's the only time I, generally speaking, am getting new followers, especially that are not connected to other people that I already know. Like, I get followers every once in a while, and I'll see who's following me, and they'll be like friends with somebody else that I'm friends with. But as far as like new engagement that's coming from Instagram, they're all from Reels.
Really? So I was just today, I think I was looking at one of Nick Page's, I think it was his story, and he shared a post, and he basically said in the thing, like, since I've stopped trying to keep up with the engagement of Instagram, it's just, this is happening. And I can't even remember what this was, but I've seen a lot of people that you'd refer to as like influencers on Instagram who have just kind of gotten so fed up with it that they're just, I'm just not even going to pay attention to this anymore.
Yeah.
And I'll bet you're right though, Tanya. I'll bet that there's so much emphasis on Reels, because it seems like when I scroll through my feed now, that's all I'm seeing. Every other post is a reel that's not even somebody that I follow. It's just a suggested post that's a reel. And it literally is like every other post. It's gotten totally ridiculous. Facebook was getting that way too.
Yeah, that kind of died off for me. Did it die off for you on Facebook? You're not on it.
I'm like, I've had enough. I'm out of here.
I mean, I still get videos, but for a while my feed was really heavily videos on Facebook, and then that kind of tapered off. But I do notice that on Instagram, and
yeah.
The only videos that Facebook suggests to me now are these reels that are just, or I don't know what they call them on Facebook video clips that are just
they have reels,
trash. Yeah, they're just trash. They're like, a motorcycle accident or a boat crashing into a bridge. I mean, they're just like, come on.
So many boats crashing into bridges.
Mine are always culture, like interviews that I don't care about at all. Like there's like that center bar, and I'm like, why would I ever click on any of that? It looks, like you said, it's like trash. I don't know. Yep. What's my algorithm telling them? I have no clue.
Just Kyle in chat. And I don't think I took a moment to say welcome, chat. Thank you all for joining us. Really appreciate you being here. You are the reason we're having this show. Just Kyle says IG users are starting to post still shots as videos just to get past the algorithm. That's interesting. And I did see a cool kind of technique the other day. It was a still shot that was as the thumbnail, but then when you swipe to it, it started to play as a little video clip. And I like that because I got to see a nice, clean picture. And then if I wanted to, I saw kind of like the video moment of it. I thought for us photographers, maybe I could post a picture and then the post-processing that like got it to that point of where I posted it. People might find that interesting. But that doesn't satisfy everybody. So I don't know.
By the way, did you show Steve the poll that brought back Mish Mash?
I don't think I did. I didn't want to hurt Steve's feelings because they're like, okay, you can have Mish Mash, but don't have that guy Steve on there.
That's not.
That's okay.
No, that's
okay.
not what they said.
I said that one of the options needed to be the reason that we watch Mish Mash is to see what hairstyle you have, and he added that.
Oh man, yeah. It's probably hard to tell. And my lighting, we were talking about this before the show started. My iMac camera just constantly. We're at this stage where the light is going down out here in the east. Well, you're on the same time zone as me, but I've got windows in my office, so the camera's just always flipping around. I'm either too cool or too dark, but I don't know if you can even see. Yeah,
looks quite distinguished.
Quite a bit more gray is starting to appear. I kept joking with Toby at the beginning of this year. I was all stressed out about a couple things, and I was like, "Yeah, my wife's saying in 6 months I'm gonna have a lot more gray hair coming out." It's starting to happen.
Yeah. Okay, so Instagram, though, I still think people should post regularly to it. I think people who are watching this channel should post regularly to it. And this is my one reason. I'm really curious, Tanya and Steve, to hear your opinions. And that's for you, the photographer, to have a place to post and practice editing pictures and then sharing them with the world. Whether or not one eyeball sees them or 30 eyeballs sees them, I think for you to have some reason to do something with your pictures after you get home from trips or an adventure is good enough to continue to use Instagram. Thoughts on that?
I couldn't agree more. And the other nice thing about that I will say about social media, but Instagram for me is I learn different editing techniques. I'm constantly kind of changing the way I edit, and I hope that I always do that. I've always looked at photography as an ongoing education, and by the time I die, I'll have just scratched the surface on what is possible with this medium. And it's a lot of fun to see what other people are doing and what appeals to me. And that changes over time too, and what I want to learn. And then I'll kind of look at something. And I've talked about this before when I used to use Peter Lick's photos. I'd pull it up on my screen. I'd move my sliders around to try to make a picture look like his. It really was helping me edit to a place that I thought was cool, but not overdone. And, all the pitfalls that you fall into when you're starting with editing. So it's really cool to see what people are doing and how their editing changes. And then I enjoy trying new techniques and putting it out on Instagram and kind of seeing what people either have to say or how many likes come in and that kind of stuff. So I couldn't agree more.
Tanya, any thoughts?
Yeah, I prefer Instagram over the other social medias personally. When I am working my Facebook page, like my business page, I do find that I get a lot of clientele from there. So I have to be careful not to neglect that. And I've gotten pretty lazy where I will post to my business Instagram and it just kind of like shifts it to Facebook. And generally I get engagement from that, but I do find that when I post directly to Facebook, I get more engagement, which seems weird because I know Facebook owns Instagram, but I do think they like you to be on that platform to give you more engagement. But my artist Instagram does kind of feel like my portfolio, although I would just warn people, like, we don't own social media, so don't put all your eggs in one basket, because like Allie was in Facebook jail. She lost her Facebook page. And so if that's the only place you're putting your pictures.
Yeah, good point. I've never heard that before. It's a great quote that you just said. We don't own social media.
No, we don't. So use social media as a funnel to what you do own. So like that's why having your website, like with Squarespace, would be a good idea, because you have your permanent portfolio there. And yeah, social media is where people are, but you can funnel people to other things. So and then if you lose your social media, you still have everything. I mean, I'm hoping you have it all backed up anyway, but like a backed up location even. So
yeah. I love having my personal website. I've got all links to like the McKay Photography Academy, Photo Enthusiast Network, various sponsors, my contact information, all that stuff. Like when we're on tours and you just meet somebody and they want to know, well, how do we stay in touch? I just say stevescurich.com. Just go there and you can link my social media links. It's just kind of a one place to get started to find me or keep track with. And I'll use Instagram if I'm getting a lot of traction on a post and I'm really happy with the edit. I'll then work up a good photo and post that to my website almost immediately. A couple days after I put it on Instagram, if it's something that I'm proud of.
That's also why I think it's so valuable to have an email list, because so for instance, if you want to book a photo shoot with me, one of the first things I say is, okay, well, you can get all my information when you sign up for my email list. That's like the kind of joining point for me. And the reason that I do that is because if I lose my social media, and that's my contact with you, if I have you on an email list, then I can say, hey, I lost my social media, I'm restarting it. Here's how you join it. And I have access to all of those clients.
Yeah.
And like, because David McKay's in the comments saying about how when Allie lost her Facebook, they lost their Instagram account with 6,000 followers and her WhatsApp was tagged to that. And that's, Facebook is king and they own all of it. And if you break the rules or something goes wrong, it's over and you have to start from scratch. So it is scary. And I think it's a really useful free marketing tool that you should be utilizing, but it's just not yours. So.
Right.
And it should just be one piece of your kind of the whole approach. Yeah. This was all made very apparent to me when I was locked out of my Instagram was basically temporarily deleted in the fall. I was really upset because it was a nice record. And this is another reason why to post to it somewhat frequently, because Steve, you kind of alluded to this. You're always changing how you edit or, what are important to you. And Instagram, if you've been using it for a while, it's a nice record of you as a photographer, of like what was important to you then, what your pictures look like, how your editing style has changed. That's nice. And I was very sad to have potentially lost that, and also potentially lost contact with quite a few like vendors and gear manufacturers. Instagram is the only place that I contact or kind of communicate with those people. So that was a huge bummer. I was lucky enough to get it back. Allie was not. And it wasn't a critical piece of the McKay's business, but it certainly was a piece. And that's just kind of a bummer when we really don't have control over those things like that. As you said, you don't own it. And it's important. I don't want to make this an ad for Squarespace, but it is important that you have some space that is your own.
Yeah.
Before we get into image review, let's just mention Twitter very quickly. And I'll say this. I used to be a fan of Elon Musk. I'm not anymore. You can have different opinions about him if you want. And when this deal hasn't gone through, yes, he says he's got this money and there's like about 6 months of regulation and stuff that still needs to happen. And he's already starting to break some kind of social contracts that were part of this deal, but we'll see. But I was like, I probably won't want to be on Twitter anymore when it's the kind of Elon Musk's version of Twitter, what I think he's saying. And I realized that doesn't make me sad. I haven't built a big community on Twitter. There isn't kind of a record of me as a photographer. I wouldn't miss it, which is, it's ironic right now though, in some ways, because I'd say after Instagram and Facebook, it is the place where I do have a decent number of followers. And pictures look really nice on Twitter. They don't compress them. They don't care what aspect ratio you put things up as. They can be in, a 16:9 vertical or horizontal and look just fine. Whereas if you look at my latest Instagram post, I had to put white boxes around it because the 8:10 aspect ratio didn't look good for today's post. So I don't know. Either of you use Twitter in any degree?
I've actually, the fact that Twitter has good photos is news to me right now. That's how off of Twitter. I have an account. I opened an account there probably in, 2007 or 8. And the last post was probably my wife griping about something with a company. I'm like, well, go to my Twitter account and send a gripe. Some people get responses that way. But yeah, no, it's a very quiet account. I haven't paid attention to Twitter for forever. Of course, it's in the news, so I don't know the details of what's going on. I just know that Elon Musk is buying or has bought it, and people are up in arms about it. I've never been much of a Twitter person. Probably will never be much of a Twitter person. So, I just kind of look the other way. I suppose it doesn't really affect me at all.
Mm-hmm.
I tried very briefly, like I have a Twitter account, and I think that I have some things connected so that they automatically like go to Twitter. I don't, the last time I got a phone, or like 5 years ago when I got a phone, maybe the one before this, I just decided to not put Twitter on it. So I haven't opened up Twitter in years and years. So who knows what I'm posting? I think things go there. But I never found like I could use that to get local clients, which is mainly what I use social media to market for. And so I didn't find it very valuable. And I also didn't ever use it as like a news source or whatever.
Yeah. So. Yeah. It's just another place for me to doom scroll at times. Brian is just reinforcing what you said, Tanya. I've said it before too. Email list, it kind of sounds a little like antiquated, but it absolutely is a fantastic way to reach your people. And Brian is saying that the marketing data supports that. So thank you, Tanya, for saying that, and Brian for backing that information up.
And I don't abuse my email list. You don't get like 2 reminder emails that I exist a week. Half the time people probably are like, did I sign up for that? There's like a welcome email. And then if I have a special, like that's it. But pretty much it's just so that it's part of my record. And if I do run a special or I have something going on, like I'll do graduation minis soon. And I'll put that out in my email list. But other than that, or if I have like an event or something, otherwise, I do not bother you because it takes time to write an email.
Yeah, but it's always a good reminder that you're there. You know, like I have emails that I get from companies that I showed interest in probably over a decade ago, and I still get bombarded with these emails, and but I don't want to junk them. I don't want to unsubscribe because I like the reminder that, okay, that company is still there. I like doing business with them. So I just delete it. And then when I need that company or whatever, I get this constant reminder. Oh yeah. I forget that I can order delivery from Costco, something like that, but it's kind of good to just
my artist account too. So like when I do my 5-day projects, then you get a behind the scenes newsletter for that. So I keep those separate because I don't have the same viewership, I don't think, for those 2 things.
Yeah.
Probably not. Yeah. And I've seen it said, if people unsubscribe from you down the road because maybe you send too many emails, then they're not your customers. And I think a lot, Steve, you make a good point of You might not read every email that comes from, company X, but you haven't unsubscribed yet because you like that reminder of them.
Right. Yeah.
So, all right, let's switch over to one of our favorite parts of the show. And I think based on the poll that I put up, it wasn't Steve's haircut that reached the top of what they missed from Mish Mash. It was, in fact, image reviews. And so we've got some fantastic images to take.
You did actually send me a screenshot of the poll, I think, as it was happening. I never saw the final results, but I said, yeah, okay, nobody's into the off-topic conversations that we have, but I'll join back up and do another Mish Mash, I suppose.
They didn't say they hated it. So if we want to talk a little bit more about Star Wars, like which favorite, whose favorite movie is which, we could do that. But let's do image review.
Let's stick to the poll.
Well, I've done photos of my Star Wars cosplay. I feel like that actually applies.
Where's that guy, what's his name? Alan? Is it Rappa?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Where's he? He's been in the chat room before. I've been following him for a while now on Instagram. I love seeing his stuff.
I know, I do too.
That's really interesting. You mentioning his name, he has been a very long time follower of my channel. I haven't seen a post from him in forever, and I bet he's still posting.
He's posting a lot of reels, actually.
Yeah, he's still posting quite a bit. I see his stuff pretty often.
He is somebody that I interacted with regularly, both liking and commenting, and for whatever reason, I'm realizing now that Instagram just decided I don't care about him anymore. Huh. That's frustrating. Isn't there supposed to be a way now on Instagram? Sorry, we're going to get into this and say, aren't you supposed to be able to switch it back to there's a different view now?
Oh yeah, I think Roy posted something about that on the Facebook page.
You can put people into favorites, right? And then make sure you see them. Okay.
Every once in a while, he comments on my artwork, and then I fangirl a little bit. So,
yeah,
I like Alan's work.
Okay, let's see. We're gonna go full Lightroom review, and let's dive right in. This is the part of the show where pen members have submitted images to us, and we take a few moments and give them some feedback and some tips and tricks in Lightroom and also maybe Photoshop on how maybe they could improve these images. As I said, it's one of our favorite parts of the show, and it's one of the parts of the show that you all said you really like. You like seeing us edit images, you like hearing feedback on your work, and we like giving it. First up is Laurie's Celestial Swirl Star Trails. We got no metadata because this is very likely created in post-processing from a series of individual images, maybe 30 seconds, maybe a little bit longer, and then put together probably with star stacks, which gives you this cool swirling pattern. The North Star is hiding right here behind the arch, and everything looks like it's spinning around that because of course, the Earth's rotation. What do you think?
Can I ask you a question before we dive into this?
Yep.
What's the file size here? And what I really want to know is, Laurie, as an artist, were you trying to do something that was kind of more surreal, like painterly and sort of blotchy, or is that because it's been pixelated and sized up and it looks flat and masked and blotchy, or like is that what you were going for, or is that because of the technology? I'm having a hard time deciphering that because we have some serious pixelation around all the edges that are just blacked out and the data is lost, and I don't know if that's what she was going for or if it's because of the size up.
I love Laurie. She's been on a couple of great trips with us. She's a great photographer. I just want to preface that before I say, Steve, I'm not sure anybody's goal is ever to go blotchy.
Okay. Well, it could be a negative word used to describe what because some people want to use their artistic expression in making something that looks like it's painted and not realistic.
I got you.
To me, this I appreciate what's going on here. I know this spot. I love this spot. Star trails here. I actually have a great star trail photo that I like from this location. I'm just, it's flat to me. It looks like it's painted and it looks way, way overdone. And, you know, if that's what you're going for and that's what you're into, then that's your artistic prerogative. You know, it's as a photograph, I think we got a lot of work to do here because there's a lot of salt on this dish.
Yeah. Tanya, I'm interested to hear your opinions. I just say that I think the quality is a little bit better than what you're seeing over YouTube, of course, always. But it does feel quite flat. We're lacking in a lot of depth. I can tell that, you know, this is a massive arch way up above us, but this distance here, the color and the light across this is very lacking. There's no directional light. There's no kind of sense of that depth there. And so I totally see that. Tanya, anything else to add?
Well, I would agree. Like, I think the editing feels forced on this a little bit. And I would kind of like to see the foreground, because it doesn't seem, especially those rocks that are more prominent on the right, don't seem as sharp as like the star trails are so sharp. And then, or at least on my end. And then those rocks aren't. So yeah, I wish those kind of faded into darkness a little bit. But I think everything just needs like pulled back a little bit. Like I just want a little more tonality, and those star trails are just really like so hard. I don't know. Is that the right word?
Yeah, it's very crunchy. I did a tutorial for pen a couple of years ago about using like the clarity slider and sharpening. And one of the things that happens when you use the clarity slider is it basically takes edges and it adds pixels. So you get extra white pixels, extra black pixels, depending on what's there, and it just widens it. So an edge that might be 1 pixel wide becomes 4 pixels wide. And in this case, it looks like it's become, you know, like 12 pixels wide when you look at where the underside of the arch is meeting the sky. And you've completely lost. It now looks like somebody went through with a Sharpie and they just, you know, kind of outlined those areas. And I love Lori to death, and I think she's an incredible photographer, and she's won some merits, and she does great work. I don't know if this was intentional or if it was just overdone.
Yeah, she's in chat. It says originally the foreground was basically a silhouette, and so she pulled up the light there in post processing, and I think we're just seeing some negative ramifications from that.
Yep, that makes sense. You brighten it a bit too much, and then you start laying on some noise reduction and stuff because there's probably a lot of noise in there being so dark. Okay.
Yeah.
But I love the composition of this, and I like that she went with that shape of star trails. Like, I think the idea here is all on the right track. I just think it went a little far.
I think with something like this, I would leave it more as a silhouette. And actually, Toby, when you're playing around with something here on Lightroom, at one point it kicked into a black and white. Maybe even check this out as a black and white, because one of the things that's throwing me off is we got a lot of color, which is just emphasizing those areas where we've lost data or it's been flattened out or masked.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've never really talked about star trails in black and white, but it could work. A couple other things that, you have a couple little gaps in some of these trails, and I'm not sure what to attribute that to. You might want to fill in some of those because they're a little distracting. And Roy in chat had the comment of maybe a tiny bit of radial blur to soften these trails a little bit and kind of balance that.
I always recommend that anyway, because star trails, even if those dashes were connected, they can look very, very harsh. And so that radial blur really helps to soften things up, especially up against a crunchy foreground like mountains or this arch. And that actually, believe it or not, it sort of creates more movement when it's softened because it looks more realistic.
But I'm going to give you bonus points because this is most on Star Wars theme.
Nice. Yes. We look like we're in the cockpit of the Millennium Falcon. So for folks who want to go out and do star trails and have a little light in their foreground, a couple options you have. One is you could light paint if you're allowed to do that in that area. Two, you could try a really long single exposure that you sandwich in with the star trails that are going to allow some light for your foreground. That can be tricky though, because if you've gone to a spot specifically for stars and no moon, super dark, then crazy long exposure is probably not going to bring that much more light onto the landscape than a shorter exposure. So one of the things that can be nice, and this is always tricky, and this is one of the when it pays off is really cool, is figure out a time where the moon is going to come up or set, like at the beginning or near the end of your star trail scene, so that you can get some nice natural light on the landscape, because then you're really going to get that sense of depth and directional light that's going to help kind of take this image to the next level. Nice. Okay. Thank you, Lori. Kevin Walk has got, I think, Sedona area. You said you were, Kevin, up there. And you posted this on Instagram. And the first thing that strikes me, I don't think it is, but it feels very crooked. I'm looking up at you guys here.
So the angle of that mountain up there. But yeah, you look at the more to the right side, and it looks pretty straight.
Yeah.
So what if you rotate it a little bit? Does it get weirder, or does it fix it?
Is Kevin in chat?
He is. Yep.
I'm curious to know if this is a sky replacement.
Mm.
And I'll tell you why I asked if we get a response.
Mm-hmm. So here's, I'm always thinking when I was just spent the last 48 hours out in the field just shooting by myself. I always really love that. If you have the opportunity to do that or go out with one or two other people, I think it's always beneficial. And I'm always kind of writing Tuesday tips in my head when I'm out. And one of the things I was thinking about is what today makes a good image for me. And, when I, again, look at my Instagram in the past, I thought basically any pretty scene was a nice picture. Hey, this is pretty. Let me take a picture. This makes a nice picture. And I don't feel that way these days. There has to be certain elements in the picture. And one of them is kind of layers with interesting foreground, midground, and background. All three of those things need to be there most of the time for me these days to say, this is a picture worth taking, editing, and sharing with the world. And so, Kevin, I want to commend you. You found some foreground elements. You've got this kind of midground slope, and then, of course, these really nice rock features. So it has those three layers. But besides the crookedness, the other thing that takes me out is this cactus kind of looks dead. This one over here looks alive, but this one looks dead. I don't know if it is. It actually looks like it has tons of blooms on it. So maybe it's just the coloring of it. But the fact that we've got two different things here that are similar yet different just kind of draws me out of the image. I don't know if you guys have specific opinions about that or anything else you want to share.
Well, I didn't like the fact that you have two of the same type of cactus, and one is light green, the other has this lavender, and they're right next to each other. That really threw me off. It does make me wonder, is one dead, is one alive? I mean, I would just focus on one or the other in your foreground if you're going to use that, because I want to travel vertically across this picture visually. I want to look at that purple cactus or the lavender cactus, and then my eyes travel up and see the mountains and then the sky. But what happens when you've got that light green one right next to it of the same shape is your eyes just kind of ping pong back and forth right in the foreground, and you don't really get to focus on what's going on in the background. And the background is phenomenal. I mean, that's a scene. Mm-hmm. I did notice in the chat that he said it's a sky replacement. The reason I asked that question is, to me, somebody who uses sky replacement in real estate quite often, this looks like a Photoshop stock sky that they offer in sky replacement. And I've said this before on the show, if you're going to use sky replacement, use your skies, because especially as time goes on, Photoshop's not adding hundreds and hundreds of skies. You can download stuff and you can purchase packages and stuff. But the basic just stock skies that they give you will start to look very familiar to people very quickly. And you're also not seeing shadows from the clouds that are being cast on the mountains in the right way and stuff. So I kind of warn you on some of this sky replacement stuff. It's a really great, powerful tool, but you really need to spend some time to make sure that you do it right. I can't remember if I did a tutorial on it. I've talked about it quite often, and there's a real trick to it, to making sure somebody doesn't look at a picture and instantly say, it looks like a sky replacement. It doesn't quite fit.
Mm-hmm. Tanya, anything else you want to add?
Not too much. I mean, I think you guys covered it. Someone in chat said about like the clouds often are the level indicator, but if you're doing a sky replacement, then you need to make sure you have everything adjusted the way you want before you add them. Because like when you rotated that, if you had shifted the clouds afterwards, then the clouds would be crooked. Do you know what I'm saying? So you kind of have to do the sky replacement in the right order because of that. So
I'm also noticing that it was shot at 11 millimeters, which is going to give you some distortions out towards the edges. And I think that's part of the issue here. Part of it is natural landscape, but part of it is distortion from that lens.
Yeah.
So
it does feel more visually comfortable now that you've made those adjustments.
Yeah, I've made some small tweaks. Thank you. Okay. Thanks, Kevin. We're moving on. David Patch has, I don't think this was sent for me to fix and edit. I should show you all the final picture of this once. He wanted to know how close he could crop, and I used a variety of kind of the super resolution modes and things like that. This isn't meant to be in here for this. Obviously, it's an epic shot, but they were quite a far away, and 70 millimeters is what he has of this whale breaching out of the water. And I have to say that using the super enhance, or what is it, this enhance, and I can't remember if I used that one or in Photoshop the super resolution, it did a decent job of getting closer, but that's a story for another day. Let's move on to Deb's Milky Way over Bodie Lighthouse.
Wow, that's pretty awesome. And I like the way she processed this. It feels real. It feels, I mean, it feels like you could be standing right there. It's a little, I'm drawn into the reds a little too much. So especially that brighter one. And then on the landscape on the right at the horizon, I'd probably tone those down quite a bit or match them up. And definitely that shooting star on the far left side. Yeah, that would be a shooting star, right? The satellites are usually the blinking.
It's hard to say without looking closer.
Oh, there's a couple of them.
Because it's not tapered at either end, it is most likely a plane.
Okay. Yeah.
That's definitely a plane.
I would remove, I'd get those out of there. In fact, I'll bet Lightroom could do a pretty decent job of this. Toby, go to the Band-Aid, get your little circle, click on one side, hold the shift key down and click on the other side, and boom, it's on.
Yeah, and maybe, it's already feathered a little bit. Yeah. And then getting close to that one. But
he has a virtual mat on this. So if you're thinking about doing this for competition, then take it into Photoshop.
Yes. Yeah. Take it out of the mat, clean it up in Photoshop. In fact, all this stuff I always do in Photoshop, but Lightroom's getting better.
It is.
And then
it is and it isn't. I say that today I wanted to clean up something so small and Lightroom just kept smearing and smearing. So I said, okay, here we go over out of this thing. So I just throw a radial gradient over here and dropping the saturation a little bit. And then you could still put some color back into that to kind of match with the area around it if you wanted to, and maybe just reduce the red a little further there with that green. So just soften that a little bit. That sucker is bright though.
It's bright, and there's no definition of what that is. I don't know what that is. So I'd actually just work on getting it out of there. I know you've got light pollution and stuff that's going on down there. That actually looks kind of nice because it silhouettes the trees. But the brightest part, you can't tell what it is, so I would just take it out.
I agree. I would take that out too. There's something so eerie about the red lights in that house. I can't decide if I really like them or if I would make them a little, like, match them a little more to the lighthouse light, but
it's like the Mustafar system in there.
What'd you say?
It's like the Mustafar system in there.
Oh, nerds. So you could just take
so
that
glad
down
that
a
you
little
got
bit. Just bring that saturation down just a little bit in there, or you could even color range and come in here and pick the red color. And notice it found all of the red that's in here. And so you could decrease the saturation there a little bit too if you wanted, and also try to move the tint away from red to battle
or you
that.
could just mask that area and warm that, like, I guess I shouldn't say warm that up, but make it a little more yellow to match instead of correcting all of them.
Overall, I just want to echo this. This is a beautiful image. I love this Milky Way. I love the I think it's interesting. You centered the lighthouse, but I think it works really well here.
I was going to mention that. I mean, not only is it centered, but the fence is offset, and it still works great. And usually I like to kind of tilt these up. If you go to transform, Toby.
I was already on my way down there.
Were you? Okay, go to transform. And yeah, just your vertical, just tilt it up a little bit, make it a little bit more vertical so it's not leaning down quite so much. And then you'll have to recrop. But I love that this works with the lighthouse right in the middle. You're kind of breaking the third rule, and it totally works.
Yeah.
So Steve, let me ask you this. Since she has a virtual mat on this, and you know how I feel about virtual mats, but because they are a necessary evil for competition.
Yeah.
Would you keep it? I would not personally keep this white. Would you go black with this?
I would. Yeah, I definitely would. We hadn't really talked about that. And I happen to completely agree with you, Tanya. I used to actually post stuff with virtual mats and everything like that. I've definitely gotten away from that. I only do it for competition now. If I'm going to print, I do physical matting. If I'm going to competition, I do virtual matting. And then all my stuff that I share on social media, my website, is just the image itself, clean. Having said that, this particular image, if you want to leave a mat on it or it's for competition, I would definitely go with a black mat. I think that's a great point.
Yeah.
Nice.
I've been erring towards black mats for most of my stuff lately. So
I do a lot. I had a couple of, I had an iceberg photo, some lighter stuff that I just sent into competition. I tried both, bounced one of them off of David McKay, and he and I both agreed that the white mat looked better. But you really, you have to be really careful because it just happened to be a really bright, whiter sort of image. And then I put a tiny little stroke that separated the two between the white in the image. So you could tell that there's still some detail in the snow when it butts right up against the pure white on the mat. And then going an off-white always looks a little weird. It kind of grays it out and it just looks obvious. So I think a black mat is usually the safest and easiest way to go.
Yeah, or
for most pictures.
For most pictures, I agree. And I just feel like there's such a stumbling block for people. And I know they say like, oh, it shouldn't hurt you, but I've seen them hurt people.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So, absolutely. And I think that it's hard to do well because there's this part of us as artists that we want to do something creative if we have to do them, and that's a slippery slope. So I don't know.
Yeah. And now I will say though, I've seen, and we've probably chatted about this before, I've seen virtual mats done in a creative way where it's all part of the artistry of the image. That's incredible, where, you know, things are coming off of the frame. And I don't know how to do that stuff. I could probably look at a tutorial and figure some of it out, but I would forget it 4 days later. But I've seen some of these artists just create these incredible virtual mats that kind of play into the story of the photograph.
My favorite one that I did that with did not merit, so now I'm a little kind of. But oh well.
All right, that's enough Matt talk. We're moving on. Gina, who was just on one of our Death Valley trips, just submitted this image here.
Nice
work of
is she
art.
in the chat room?
I'm sorry, say again.
Is she in the chat room having submitted?
I haven't seen her name pop up.
Okay, nice work. This is wow. That's cool.
It is.
Cool.
It's so the content's so unique.
Look at all that stuff. Like, I mean, you got like you recognize that there's a car key, like an electronic car key, and the $100 bill, the glasses. This is just there's something really artsy and cool about this, and she's done a great job with it.
I feel like there is a maybe kind of like a little bit of smoke coming, here and there, kind of superimposed. I don't think that there was a candle down below, but I don't know for sure.
What does that say on the front? Work of, I can't make out the last word. Art, work of art. Gotcha.
I think you're right. I think that's some sort of overlay. I'm going to guess.
Yeah.
Overlay.
How do we feel? But I think my only criticism might be, and I can't decide totally until I do this. How do we feel about this kind of almost all black and white with just a little bit of that kind of, I don't know, other color or straight black and white?
I'm a little torn, actually. I'm not a fan of what's it called? Color painting.
Selective color.
Selective color. Thank you. And even a picture like this, I'm kind of way out of my wheelhouse on this. I appreciate it. I love looking at stuff like this. It's just not, the type of art that I create. But I definitely enjoy it. And I think she did a really good job. I like the really kind of subdued saturation of it, the way she had it. But then you go black and white, and it just draws your attention to the details even more because color isn't distracting you away.
Yeah.
I feel like
you're going to do. This is what. Go ahead, Tanya.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you, but I feel like the way she did this like singular color with the black and white was done well and in an interesting way. So it's really hard for me to just be like, no, go right black and white. Like, I don't know, it gives it some sort of interest that I think that straight black and white doesn't have.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I agree. I'm still on the fence. I think John Mayfield likes the touch of color. Roy says what he loves about this is something he's not good at, and I agree. I feel similar. It's busy but done properly, so nothing is where it's too much. I feel like there is a placement here.
Okay, so is this Toby? Have you kind of reversed it back to the way she submitted it at this point?
Yes, this is straight out of camera.
So I'm noticing that
straight from her.
Okay, I'm noticing that the color is actually kind of blotchy and messy. Like if you go to the chain in the top right of the box where it's overlapping the box right up there, see how it overlaps into that sort of overlay, that almost like a ghostly.
Yeah.
And I don't really like the color getting in that stuff. I like
too, right?
Yeah, I don't know. This is a weird one for me, but I really like it. So,
and there's something about this that feels natural, like she didn't, like it's a still life, but it's not overly contrived.
Yeah.
Like if you opened up that box, that's what it would look like, and then she documented it. So I'm sure that didn't happen, but I like that it feels that way.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Coming back to us. So thank you, everybody who submitted images. I really appreciate that. Keep submitting them. They end up in that folder. And then next time we have Mish Mash, which I'm going to shoot now again. There's a couple of reasons why Mish Mash hasn't happened. One of them was the number of Wednesdays that I've been home since the beginning of the year. I think has been 2 or 3. So it just hasn't been much. I leave on Sunday, and I don't return back to home until I think the 28th. Does that sound right, Steve? We're together at the end there.
27th is
27th.
when I'm getting home.
Okay, so I'm probably the same, and that's Friday. So this show probably will happen in June. I'm going to shoot for at least once a month. That's my goal, because I do enjoy taking this time with you all, and I think you all enjoy it too, as you said in the community forum. If you're wondering what we're talking about, if you're watching this and you're not a Pen member, you should consider joining. It is a fantastic group of people. Lots more than this. Mish Mash happens once a month there, so you can learn more about that at photorec.tv/pen. And I neglected to say at the beginning, if you've got any questions that we don't comment on or answer during the show, Roy is very nicely collecting those, putting them in a document that we'll get to by the end of the show as kind of a wrap-up Q&A section. So just keep an eye out for that. All right, let's jump over. Tanya will finish the show talking about creativity. So pressure's on to have that talk all ready for us as we wrap up the show. But let's talk a little bit about the Canon R7. It is rumored. So quick recap. Canon has basically gone all mirrorless. They haven't released any DSLRs in a couple of years. They started with the R, which I was pretty critical of, but after a lot of firmware updates, is a decent camera. Can still be purchased for about $1,500, $1,600, I think. They released the RP, which is a very budget-friendly full-frame camera. Kind of picture, like, it's similar in size and shape to like the T6 series or T7 series. I think that comes in at about $1,000. Then they came out with 2 fantastic cameras, the R6 and the R5. Steve, you own the R5. You happy with it?
I love it. Yeah. I actually have grown to enjoy that camera more than I thought I was going to. Same thing happened with Canon when I went from the 5D Mark III to the 5D Mark IV. I thought that was just kind of an incremental increase. But I was excited to do it and see where that went. It turned out to be a really great move for me, especially using servo focus. But the jumping over to mirrorless is just a whole different ball game now. I'm not going to say I wish I did it sooner, because there's still a big part of me that misses my 5D Mark IV. But even if I still had it, I know that I just wouldn't be shooting it. There's so much confidence in these mirrorless cameras, and the R5 is phenomenal with the eye tracking and the speed and the focusing, and it's awesome. And I know David McKay's become a huge fan of his. I still use the medium format for all my real estate work. It's still my baby, but that R5 is probably the best tour camera I've ever owned, for sure.
Yeah, it's very nice. So you're keeping track. That's 4 mirrorless full frame cameras from Canon, ranging in price from about $1,000 to the R5, which is about what, $3,500, $3,499.
The R5 I thought was about $3,800, but it may.
I think you're right. Yep. Yeah.
It's
so it is. We've got rumors of an APS-C version of one of these cameras, an R7, that's going to have kind of the body styling, somewhere between an R6 and an R5, which in my opinion, they're both very similar and very nice. I reviewed both cameras and have lots of praise for them. Well, I mean, what do we see as the benefits of an APS-C camera?
Well, you get reach.
You got a crop factor. Yep.
Yeah. Usually you get a really great sensor at a much less price than full frame.
Yeah. So price, reach.
It used to be like with the, what was the 7, the Mark, I don't know, is it the Mark 7, the DSLR?
7D, Mark 1 and 2.
Thank you. My brain is mush. I mean, that thing, the frames per second were outstanding.
Yep.
It doesn't hold a candle to the mirrorless stuff nowadays, but for a long time that was king. So that was your wildlife camera, right? You got tons of frames per second. You got extra reach from your lens, and you didn't have to, it was weather sealed, and you weren't breaking the budget by buying a full frame.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. So all those things sounds pretty good. And yes, I can see a spot for an APS-C mirrorless in Canon's RF lineup, but the real question is, do they introduce a new lens mount? Now, I'll remind you that Canon already has crop mirrorless cameras that use the M mount. Mm-hmm. So they're a little messy. They've got their still EF and EFS lenses out there, although they don't seem to really be making those anymore, of course, for DSLRs. Then you've got the RF mount, and you have full frame only for that right now. But along can come this crop sensor body. Will it use crop sensor lenses? As you said, Steve, one of the benefits of going crop is usually it's more affordable. If you can only get your hands on full frame lenses to put on it, you're losing both some of that kind of cost savings, probably, because the Canon Pro level lenses are a little pricey. There is a caveat, though. You're also losing some of that weight savings of having an APS-C size sensor.
Yeah, I think what Canon needs to do, and sorry to those of you who have invested in the M mount, is you got to just lose the M mount. I mean, that's been dying a slow death anyway for years now. Yeah. You stick with the RF mount. I mean, you do just like they did with their DSLRs with the EF, and you've got crop cameras and you've got full frame, but you use the same mount. And then you've got some lenses. They designed some lenses for the crops.
Yeah, the thing that's different, I mean, if this was 5 years ago, I'd be like, of course they need APS-C size lenses, both to be affordable and, to be lightweight. Who wants to buy APS-C size camera and then put full frame lenses on it only? It's nice to have that option, but the only lenses you can add, that's like you're carrying around, that's like me carrying around a spare tire for my car that's much bigger than it needs to be. I don't know if that's the best example, but that's an example. But they now have these kind of more interesting lenses. Canon has the 600 and the 800. They're 100 to 400. That is the very consumer friendly. It's like $650. I haven't used it personally, but it's getting good reviews. They're fairly lightweight. Their construction is, it's plasticky, but they're well built. And so they're affordable. They're well built, but they happen to be full frame lenses. So,
yeah. Well, I think that's what you do is everything is a full frame lens, and you've got different lines. You've got a pro line, and you've got more of a consumer line, or it's not all weather sealed, and it's cheaper plastic and stuff like that. Not to say it's bad. It's just not. It's not going to stand up the way an L lens would, but because of that, you pay a lot less money. Mm-hmm. And why do you need a crop lens? It always made me wonder how many of those crop lenses are they actually selling versus a full frame lens that's more common that you can mount right on the EF body and just use a crop sensor with it.
It's a good question. You got to remember, I feel like for so long, the Rebel series was their bread and butter.
Yeah.
Sold so many. And I think most of the lenses sold for those cameras were probably crop. Because I don't think people buy.
They were always kitted. They were always sold as a kit, where you got 2 or 3 lenses or a couple lenses that had huge range in them. That were bundled together, and you got a bag and you got a memory card and all that stuff. That's a lot of the people were buying stuff that way.
Yeah. I don't know. So it's interesting. There are patents for APS-C mirrorless that were posted just a week ago, or a little bit more, for a 24, 28, and 35 fast lenses. They mentioned high-speed focusing, which would pair nicely with the R7. But reading through some of the comments, these also could be for their cinema level cameras that are basically APS-C mirrorless as well. These don't seem to pair well with kind of a sports and wildlife action camera. But I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. It's certainly going to be a bit messy because then they're going to have so many different lens mounts. Yes, the M is dying out. There's even rumors that I think the most recent M, the M6 Mark II is discontinued. So that is going away. But I feel bad for people that bought into that system and then kind of are left behind.
Yeah, I do too. But, I mean, I don't know. Going back to a time since like the 5D Mark II forward, you could even rewind it all the way back to the Rebel series. When has Canon's product line never been a mess? It's always been just, it drives me a little crazy because they have these slight differences between a couple of lenses or bodies or whatever, and it's a whole different product at a whole different price point. And I think they try too hard at times to be everything to everybody. Now they've got a lot to offer, and they, for years, always had the biggest library of lenses, and they're going to be there again. But that's great. But I don't know. I just feel like their product line is always messy. It's always just too much stuff, too many options.
Tanya, you're firmly in the full frame world from Nikon. Any interest from you for a crop sensor where you could share lenses back and forth? Nikon already does have crop sensor mirrorless cameras.
My Z9's been on back order since January. So
wow, still.
No, I just want that. That's all.
It looks like such a nice camera. On the Egypt trip, I held David Carr's in my hands briefly. I'd say the thing it does best, in my opinion, is make the Sony A1 look a bit overpriced because it just has so much to offer. Ergonomics are fantastic. Autofocus is absolutely fantastic. Image quality is fantastic. And that you bring up a good point, though. Let's not get too excited about this R7. One, it's supposed to be announced in the fourth quarter of this year. And two, the way things are, I'm hearing now chip shortage-wise across the board, we're not going to see any let up from that until 2025. So, this camera's not going to be rolling off the assembly line like the chocolates in I Love Lucy. It's going to be a little slower.
You pulled that out so smooth.
I had that in my head for some reason the other day. I was thinking about something. And
well played. I wish I didn't know you so well because then I called you out on how smooth that was. But that was good.
Yeah, it's rare. It's rare, but it happens. Yeah. So I mean, you'll see. I'm excited for Canon. I love. If you haven't noticed, other than this Mish Mash, I've just been very busy, and so there hasn't been a lot coming out on this channel. There's a lot of reasons for that as well. It's not just busy and kind of changing my focus, but one of them is all these cameras are great. You don't need me to tell you anything about them. Just buy the one that works for you and go take some nice pictures somewhere. It's I feel that way a little bit more than I have in a long time. And all of the Z series cameras are very good. All of the current Canon cameras are very good. I love having personal conversations about these, but as far as like making a video where I talk about the pros and cons, I'm just not that excited. I still have some products. I still got some tutorials that I have in my brain that I do hope to get out on the channel at some point this year. But just as far as like the pure reviews of the cameras, they're all good. I give them thumbs up.
Yeah, it's it'll sound like I'm complaining, but really it's such an exciting time in photography right now when it comes to gear, because to your point, there is so much great equipment out there that if you just walk into a camera store and you buy a camera that was made, a mirrorless camera that was made in the last couple of years from a reputable manufacturer like a Canon, a Nikon, a Sony, you're not really going to go wrong. You're going to have an awesome camera in your hands. And then it just comes down to learning how to use it and then going places and using it. So the advertisement now almost becomes, okay, well, how do you use the equipment? And then where are you going to go use it? Which,
your gear's not holding you back anymore.
Right. Yeah, totally. And to what Toby does, There's so many people out there reviewing equipment. Heck, there's people out there reviewing equipment that they haven't even gotten their hands on, or it's not even coming out for 2 years. We've gotten so inundated with that it's now become, okay, are you the first person to get your hands on it and review it and get that YouTube video out there? And if you're not, then how many views are you actually going to get? So that's where it sounds like I'm probably complaining, but it's just an exciting time. There's a lot of great stuff out there, and we've got some serious competition. So prices are expensive. We've got supply chain issues, of course, but they're all kind of, it's not just Sony dominating the mirrorless world anymore. Everybody's kind of battling for it.
Yeah.
And back to that point on the Z9, holy cow, that camera is amazing. I saw that in Antarctica with David Carr. He had just gotten it and put it in my hands, and man, that thing, Nikon, when they hit a home run like they did with the D850 and now with the Z9, they really hit the ball way over the fence. It's pretty amazing what they've done with that.
Yeah. Well, thank you for adding to my impatience.
Yeah, that's tough. That's tough. I should be clear though. There are still stupid products out there. I want to share this one that my friend posted about on TechCrunch. This is the Pinhole Pro Max. It's going to cost you $400, and we don't want to talk about psychedelic startups. There we go. It is basically a pinhole camera, which you can make with a piece of cardboard.
Make that out of a shoebox.
I used to make those with my photography class.
Yeah.
That's right. Yep. And he points that out. He said, you make one for $0, 10 minutes of patience. There are 23 recipes for how to make one in this article alone. But here is Thingify. Okay, their name is stupid in the first place. Thingify. $400 wants to sell you this. Now, it does have different pinhole bits, but I mean, like, here's the picture you're going to take with your $1,000 camera with this $400 lens on it. Here is a picture. I just don't see this just as like save your money.
John
But
wrote
that
drill hole in
reminded
a
me.
lens cap.
Drill hole in a lens cap. Nice, John. I mean, yeah, save your money, folks. I mean, oh God.
That reminded me though, last year sometime, I think it was, maybe 2 years ago now, we had a long run of like a lot of these shows. We shared our like the worst products we'd ever used or reviewed, and mine was this. You all remember this? It is actually supposed to clean your sensor. It looks like a lens, mounts to your camera like a lens, and then you flip this little switch and a fan turns on, and it's supposed to suck all the dust off.
Wow.
Yeah, it doesn't work. Not even a little bit. I mean, like if you put your finger here, you can kind of feel that the air is moving, maybe a little bit. But I realized the other day, I shared this on stories. This arrived a couple weeks ago. The future of sensor cleaning is very similar.
Toby, you got to click off of this story. None of us can see.
Oh yeah,
that.
you want to see this full. Oh no, that's exactly not what I wanted to do. Here, we'll even go here for a second. Look at this guy. This is an electronic sensor cleaner, and you hold down this button for a minute.
Oh, that's awesome.
It really works. And an important piece to it is a filter that goes on the side here, so the air it's sucking in doesn't have any dust in it. Because if you're doing that in my house, there might be a little dust floating around. It really works. Now the downside is it is pricey, and of course you have to charge it. But it's USB-C, as I mentioned in my story a while ago, which makes me very happy as I consolidated everything to USB-C. So I just thought it was funny. I was like, one of the worst products I've ever had, and a pretty nifty product that takes kind of the same idea, but is actually working.
Dude, that's like
so
the Floby for cameras.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just like it.
Yeah.
It's called, now, I don't know how we feel about this name, but it's called Blower Baby.
Come on.
So,
what was the name you just made fun of? That this one is tame compared to
Thingify.
tame
Right.
compared to this one. I mean.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just okay. I'm so getting David McKay one of those for Christmas.
This is.
He's on here. Don't tell him.
He stopped watching. Wait, he's still
Oh,
here.
he's here.
Oh, Dave, how do you never watch this whole show? This is from the company Nightcore, which they also make a new flashlight that I have, also USB-C. And it is so powerful that when it accidentally turned on in my camera bag, it started to melt the inside of the bag. So that's a true story.
Wow.
Realized that in Egypt, that there was some charring inside my camera bag. Where did it come from? Oh, from the flashlight. So, but this stuff is impressive. This company also, I'm very excited. It's supposed to be arriving today. Just released the new Sony third-party battery. This is not it. I haven't gone and picked it up yet. That has a USB charging port built into the battery. So you can just plug a little cord into your battery and it starts charging up. No charger required. So I'm excited to try that. There's a lot of news about it recently. I haven't seen anybody actually use it yet. So we'll see how it works. But that's Nightcore. They've got a lot of nice products right now. And I'm excited to try this battery too. Yeah.
Blower baby.
Blower baby. Roy's got the link in chat. So go follow that if you want. Can it clean your keyboard? Kevin, it can clean anything that you want to. I mean, with air that blows. I don't know.
Are you going to bring that on our next tour?
Yeah, we're going to the Southwest. This is dusty.
Will that clean your half of the hotel room?
I just spent like 48 hours in the car driving around southern Washington looking at waterfalls and stuff, and didn't have any passengers, only had the dog with me, so he rides in the back. So the whole passenger side of the car was just like piled with literally the drone and the camera. And like,
why didn't you send me a picture?
I almost did, but then I thought it might trigger your PTSD. So I thought, you know what? He's going to get to see this again in person real soon.
Yeah.
So
can't wait for that.
Yep. Okay. Let's start to wrap this show up. Tanya, I want to talk a little bit about creativity. Tell us a little bit about this class. How do you teach creativity? I mean, I've been trying with Steve for years, and he's still
Lost cause, man.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about it. And yeah.
Well, first of all, I thought the class went so well, and really we needed people who wanted to come and kind of do a deep dive into their own personal style and really identify why they even think they're struggling with creativity to begin with. Because a lot of times it starts with the fact that you've just limited yourself by saying that you don't think you're creative. And we spent a lot of time doing exercises where we would, like we did one station where we would sit and we would just have one sensory thing in front of us. So sometimes we had a station where it was just the sense of smell. And you would write down the visuals that came to mind from the things that you were smelling. And like, what story would you create from that? And we did the same thing with sounds, and we did the same thing with different tastes. And it's so amazing how just some people could listen to one sound and the visuals that came to mind for them could be really comforting. And the same sound for someone else was really upsetting. And how they would create a totally different visual just from listening to that sound. And so really it was kind of becoming visual storytellers from different types of triggers, trying to visualize different things like emotions or concepts for us, break those down. Like one of the exercises we did, we talked about, what's an emotion that you feel like is something that's constant for you. So maybe that would be stress. And then, what triggers stress for you? Is it because you don't feel like you have enough time? And then what visually could represent time for you? Like a watch, an hourglass, a clock. And then what kind of story can you create with that object to visually convey that emotional feeling? So it was just lots of lots of different exercises like that. We shot different things. We had some models come in the one day. We tried just exploring different options with the models. Whenever you're photographing a portrait, the eyes become the focal point automatically, because that's we're taught to make eye contact with people. So one of the things I encouraged them was to try to create mood without using the eyes. Whether that's posing or using something that goes in front of that. We used lighting to create different moods. It was fun. And to be honest, most of the people who were there were, and we didn't just shoot portraits, but most of the people who were there would have said that portraits was like the last thing they were interested in. And the first day when we said, like, tomorrow we have models coming in, they looked scared. And but then they produced these amazing images. And I think it really helped them to see, you know, again, maybe they had limited themselves in that area. So it was just fun. We were really exploring different things. We were trying to push people out of their comfort zone. We were trying to push people to acknowledge what they love about other people's creative style and how that might work into their own creative style or their approach for things. And I think it was a really productive weekend.
Very cool. Yeah, I love the idea. Go ahead, Steve.
Oh, I was just going to say that sounds amazing. I love the approach, a smell, you know, and what does that trigger, and the fact that people get different reactions.
Yeah,
that's one of the things that I just love the most about any artistic medium, but for me, photography, because that's the path that I chose, is that you can just be yourself. I mean, you can be totally different than somebody else. And it's your way of expressing what's going on in your mind's eye, what you want to put out there. And I wish that we had. I hope you do more of these classes. And I love it when we're on tour. Tours are a little different because they're structured, and people kind of follow along with what other people are doing and stuff. But I love it when you see a photographer that's been on a few tours with us and they've grown, and then they've kind of just peeled off on their own, and they're just doing something creative. Whether it works or not, you know, I don't know, but they're working on it and they're finding their artistic voice. And for me, that's the biggest joy, is to see. It's almost like seeing somebody graduate from following you to a spot and sticking next to you and having questions, which is exactly what we're there for. But just saying, I got this. You guys have laid the foundation. Now it's time for me to kind of go out and get creative. And so I hope you have more of those classes coming up. And I hope people watching this pay attention to when those are, because I kind of followed it, pieces of it, as you and Allie were doing it, and it just looked awesome. I wanted to be there.
Well, it's so funny because the girls showed up who were going to model for us, and Allie had a studio set up for inside, but the weather was nice, and we had this wall with ivy, and we decided we were going to take them outside for a little bit. And my first question was like, "Are you girls allergic to like plants or ivy?" And Allie was like, "That's okay, because we like to keep people really far away from the background." And the first thing I do is like shove this one girl into the ivy and have it across her face, and I was like, "Well." That wasn't going to be my approach. That would be true for like quiet portrait photography, but which, you know, that has its place, and we taught a little bit of that, but then I was, you know, just having them kind of consumed by it too. So that worked for me.
I have your you have multiple Instagrams, so I've switched to the Wilhelm photography one on the screen because you do share a few shots from the workshop there, and I think they're fantastic. I just love the idea of, you know, these people didn't come necessarily with portrait photography in mind, so getting out of their comfort zone. I think, you know, even though they might not have focused on portraits, can really lend to some creativity and how they approach other scenes. So I think that's great. Yeah.
And it really, I mean, every genre of photography, one of the things that I really tried to make sure they knew when they left the class, like, they came as artists. They were already artists, and it's okay for them to start claiming that.
Yeah.
I told them, like, start using the title photographer, start using the title artist. You've you don't have to like hit some level where you have arrived and you get to claim that. The fact that you're here already shows me that that's what you are. And I think once you get into that mindset, you stop limiting yourself and you start really, taking some risks creatively. And that's, even if you fail, that's really what starts producing things for you.
Yeah. And I believe there's art in, it's not just an artistic medium that we're all familiar with, like photography and painting and drawing and stuff like that, and theater. There is art everywhere when you start to kind of get your mindset there into this creative process. There's art in the way my dad runs his business. My sister and I have talked about that before. I mean, he talks about, my sister teaches art to kids, and I'm a photographer. So we're an artistic family, I suppose. But my dad always says, well, that's you guys, I don't do any of that. We said, well, Dad, we've watched the way you do this dance of running your business. So with all these, he runs a cold storage, which is nothing exciting, but the way he's been able to do that over the years and the contracts that he puts together and the vendors and how they all interact and stuff. I mean, there's an artistic way that he approaches his business. And my sister and I kind of fear working that business at some point because we're like, he's got his own artistic way of running it. I have no idea how to emulate that or what to do. So my point is we are all artists. We're all creative beings. And I think we really, especially in today's world when everybody is, kind of clamoring for whatever their cause is this week and getting people on board with that. And I'm somebody who really likes to celebrate our differences. I think a world of the same people would be really, really boring. And Toby and I have had heart-to-heart discussions over the years with our tours and stuff like that. And I feel that the differences between he and I is the greatest asset that we have in our friendship. I love being close with people that are totally different than me because I don't get very inspired by people that are like me. Where do I get
the messiness is good for you, you're saying?
Yeah, I'm not going to become a pig like you anytime soon. But
a pig? All right. I think on that note.
Sensor.
What's that?
I said he's going to have the cleaner sensor.
That's right.
Yeah. I've got the cleaner side of the room. He's got the.
You're going to be over there with a rocket blower. Eka. And I'm going to be like.
With your blower baby over there.
My blower baby. Doing God's work. All right. We're going to wrap this show up. One of the things, we mentioned, Dave McKay was in chat. Maybe he's even still there. The McKay Live Instagram went away. It is back as McKay Live Photo. And if you don't already, you should go follow them. And that's a picture of me. Dave, I know how much you love me because you chose me as your profile picture. So that's the only reason I wanted to give them a shout out. Just to show that. All right. And Dave and Charlie are putting together or have put together an incredible Botswana trip, November 2023. There's still some spaces available. So if you're interested, just email him hello@mckaylive.com.
Yeah, you know what's so exciting? I just want to chime in on this real quickly. We're kind of, the McKays have had to endure a lot over the last couple of years. We've all talked about it. We all know that. Those who know the McKays and know what we do and stuff. And I'm just so happy to have kind of been a part of this whole challenge that we've gone through. But we're now kind of rounding the bend to where we're going to be announcing new stuff and new tours. We've been kind of making good on a lot of tours that had to be postponed and fit some new stuff in there when we can. Toby and I did back-to-back trips in Death Valley recently, and that was awesome. We can't wait to get back there. So keep your eyes and ears peeled for that. But I'm really, really excited about the next few years ahead and what we're able to roll out and what's coming. So yeah, go check out that website, get subscribed and all that good stuff.
Yeah. All right. So I says that one's sold out. I didn't realize. I thought we were still working on a few more. That's great. Scotland, Ireland trip. If you're interested, send them an email so that you can be notified first, because these trips sell out fairly quickly usually.
We're gonna have to talk to
Awesome.
StreamYard about these.
Yeah. They each. I know. Sorry about that, folks. This is something new. We haven't had to deal with that before. As soon as they pop up, I block, but every single time it's a different bot. So I will look at more behind the scenes, either on StreamYard or YouTube, to see if I can block that for the future.
Yeah,
that's just stupid.
Yeah. Anybody working for you companies, fix that.
Yeah. All right. Steve, thanks so much for taking the time out and joining us today. It was good chatting with you again. I'll see you like in about a week.
Yes.
About a week I see you as we start our Makeup Southwest trip from the original back in 2020. You all can follow Steve, of course, at Scurich on Instagram is the best place to see his work. Go take a look. Say Bluey to those Instagram algorithms and put him on your favorites list, and make sure you're updated with every single post and giving it a like and a comment, because that's always a nice thing to do. And the other person that you should put on your favorites list is, I switched this banner. I don't have the other one now. Wilhelm Photography, or what's the other one? Tanya.
TanyaWilhelm.artist.
TanyaWilhelm.artist. And you very nicely have links on each of these Instagram to the other Instagrams, and you should follow all of them, including your macro work. Even though you don't post so often, the images you have on there, I love. They're so wonderful.
Thanks. I know. I'll shoot more macro soon. It's warming up.
Yeah. That's true. That's true. You're on the East Coast. You're getting.
I love your macro work.
Snails are coming out of hibernation. That's right.
No cicadas this year. Woohoo!
I know, but it was fun last year.
Nice.
For some of us.
They're actually not super pretty, but I was glad that I got to see them.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to this spring's work from you.
Okay. I'll get out there eventually.
Yeah.
So I do have 2 macro pieces in districts, actually.
Oh, cool.
Oh, cool. Looking forward to that. All right. Roy's reminding me we have a chat question. Sorry, that's Sue. She was asking about removing the sound. Simple way to remove all sound when posting to Instagram. Isn't there just a button within that just mutes it?
Yeah, they're usually when you're loading, like does it say for a reel? Is it?
She said let's say if I take this.
I just seen a video and a story. But
if you do a reel, you can click really audio. No,
just kind of click the little sound button, and you can turn it off, and you can then add music if you want, or voiceover.
So that's not in a reel; that's in a story, right?
That's in both.
In both, I think.
When I go to reels,
but I know
when I go to reel,
hate making reels. I just make a TikTok and then I load it as a reel.
She just said yes for a reel.
Okay.
And did I miss a wee button? Yes, Sue. I think you just missed a wee button. That's
No, I don't think so, because I'm looking. I think, and you click this little audio button in Reel, and all it does is bring up music that you can use, and there's no way within that.
Oh, you can't just share it silent?
No.
That does not seem right.
I know. So the thing I was going to recommend.
If I figure it out, Sue, I'll message you.
That explains why every reel I've ever seen seems to have the same little song to it. Every boat crashing into a harbor has some,
That's just because it's viral music. That is not why.
That's right. I'll say that the video editor CapCut, I think, is very good, and I know absolutely allows you to blank out the sound within there. And then you might even be able to blank out the sound in the kind of the iPhone default video editor, maybe. But yes, one of us, Tanya or I, will battle for the opportunity to get back to you with some information on this soon.
I'm so glad I was taken out of that mix.
We're not going to make you a real expert. Yeah. Okay. Thank you all so much. Thank you, chat room, for hanging out with us. Roy, thanks for all that you have done behind the scenes. Really appreciate it. We'll be back probably in June. Until then, bye-bye, everybody.